What is going on, you guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, and we are here to talk about WWE Night of Champions 2025 live from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where we witnessed what could possibly be the final John Cena CM Punk match ever. John Cena defended the WWE Championship against CM Punk in the main event of this show. And in a year, in an age where John Cena matches aren't quite what they used to be, Cena doesn't have the same spring in his step like he used to, but he and Punk still have some level of in-ring chemistry that cannot be matched. These two are wrestling soulmates through and through. They constantly bring out the best in each other. And while the match on this show does not come close to holding a candle to their matches of old, it was still, by modern day John Cena match standards, this was a very good match. Up until the barrage of interference and clusterfuckery towards the end. But up to that point, the stuff that Cena and Punk were doing in the ring was pretty good. There was some finisher spam going on here, which we see a lot of in modern day wrestling, not just in WWE, but across a lot of different promotions. At certain points in this match, John Cena just constantly going for the attitude adjustment, even hitting it, I think, 3 times, and CM Punk kicking out of all 3 AAs from John Cena. So, again, that's just what we see a lot of nowadays, so can't say I was too surprised by that. But we got to a very interesting point in this match where John Cena went to the outside, picked up his championship belt, and threatened to use it on CM Punk. But as Cena looked around, looked out to the crowd, he decided against it, and he tossed it to the side, threw it to the floor, and he didn't do it. Then as he went back after CM Punk, Punk hit him with a GTS, but Cena kicked out of it. And then as the two are fighting back and forth again, John Cena once again goes for his shoulder tackles, and one of them, Punk ducked it, and Cena took out the referee, and that opened the floodgates right there. Because as CM Punk laid him out with a GTS, Punk's looking around, he's calling for a new referee to come out, but instead out comes Seth Rollins and his unnamed faction of Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. They come out. They swarm CM Punk, Breaker, and Reed do at least. But Punk's able to fight them off, sends them to the outside, tries to dive out onto them, but kind of overshoots it a little bit. And the two of them don't necessarily catch him, but he didn't land completely flush onto the top of his head. So Punk was able to live through this. But they did plant him through the announce table. And then Rollins called for a referee to come out and outran Charles Robinson, but before he could make it to the ring, Cena basically pounced him on the floor and took him out. And so he gets in the ring, comes face to face with Seth Rollins, and the two of them are arguing back and forth. I guess Rollins was out here to cost CM Punk the match and wasn't necessarily out here to cash in, but obviously you see what this situation is, you could, piece that together. But as the two of them were yelling, Rollins was talking about how this had nothing to do with Cena. So that was what I came to the conclusion of, is that he was just out here strictly to cost Punk the match and not necessarily with the intention of cashing in Money in the Bank. But it is what it is. Cena laid out Rollins with an AA anyway, and then he got attacked by Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. This brought out Penta, who came out, and he fought with Braun Breaker on the entrance ramp. And then Sami Zayn came out not too long after. Then they fought off onto the stage and floor area, and Sami or Penta, I should say, wiped everybody out with a dive out there. Meanwhile, back in the ring, Bronson Reed goes up top, going for the tsunami on John Cena. But then CM Punk gets back up on the ring apron, tosses him off, and then Cena lifts Bronson up and hits him with an attitude adjustment. And then Cena and Punk, who have gone back and forth for weeks now, and they have been engaging in a battle here. Punk extends the hand, and Cena gives him a handshake and pulls him in, hugs him, and we get that cold stare in Cena's eyes like at Elimination Chamber earlier this year. Pulls back in, tries to give Punk a low blow, but of course Punk caught it. I guess he could see it coming, and he set him up for a GTS, but Seth Rollins ran back in, clobbered Punk in the face with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and hit him with a stomp. But then Cena immediately tossed Rollins out, went for the cover. The referee, who got knocked out, miraculously recovered, got back in the ring, hit the 1-2-3, and just like that, so ends the final John Cena CM Punk match, and John Cena is still the WWE champion. It is worth pointing out that John Cena did not cheat in this match, not to that degree. He took advantage of the opportunity, but he had an opportunity to hit Punk with the championship belt. He didn't do it. He tried to low blow him, and Punk stopped him, but he still didn't do it. And here, Punk was screwed by Seth Rollins. And like I said, John Cena just took advantage of the opportunity. Similar to the Elimination Chamber earlier this year. John Cena won that chamber match after Rollins gave a curb stomp to CM Punk. So this is almost a very reminiscent moment as to that. So, like I said, the match up to the point where the ref got bumped and Rollins and company came out and all the people started flooding out there, I thought it was a pretty good match. Better than the WrestleMania main event. I would say even a little bit better than what John Cena and Randy Orton were doing at Backlash. You know, just as a match, one-on-one with Cena and Punk, I found it to be pretty entertaining. Again, nothing like what the two of them did at Money in the Bank 2011 or SummerSlam that same year, or even that one infamous match on Raw in 2013 where CM Punk busted out a pile driver. Just to name a few of their many incredible matches with each other, it couldn't hold a candle to any of that. But that element of Cena where there's just that magic still in him, it's not quite there. He'll be the first to admit that too. It's not quite there, but he does still have great chemistry with CM Punk. And again, not a big fan of the finisher spam and just constantly going for GTSs and attitude adjustments and kicking out of finishers and all that. Not a huge fan of that, but I was entertained. The goal here was to entertain me. I was entertained. The people in Riyadh were entertained. My God, were they entertained by this match. They were hot for it from the jump, and they were hot for it all the way up to the end. As for what's going to come out of this, well, for CM Punk and Seth Rollins and all these people, I imagine, I'm not sure exactly what the match is, but I assume CM Punk and Seth Rollins will be involved in some way with each other at SummerSlam, and possibly Roman Reigns will be involved too. I'm not sure when Roman's coming back. I've given up trying to figure out when Roman's coming back to TV, so he'll be back when he's back, you know. Just based on the players who we saw involved in this match, I could see a 6-man tag team match coming up. Maybe not for SummerSlam, but maybe for TV or even Saturday night's main event, where Punk, Sammy, and Penta team up to take on Rollins and Reed and Breakker. So that could be something there. And as for John Cena, his next destination is very clear, and that was made clear on this show in the opening match, where we got the finals of the King of the Ring tournament between Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. Much like the main event, the fans were really hot for this match. This was probably the hottest, even slightly more enthusiastic for the opening match than they were for the main event with Cena and Orton. They were really into both guys. during their entrances. And as the match went on, they favored Randy Orton a lot more than Cody, mainly because Randy started to sell his back at a certain point in the match and Cody was working over it. So they were cheering a little bit more for Randy than they were Cody. But even still, these fans were really into this match, and it was a great one. It was a great back and forth between Randy and Cody. This is the first singles match between the two of them in a very long time, and it is a match that a lot of people, myself included, have been really interested in seeing in this current modern day, with Cody as the top babyface and Randy Orton, one of the elder statesmen in the company, or a locker room leader, as Cody pointed out in his post-match promo. So, and of course, with the implications for what this can lead to in the future. So this was a great starting point. The two of them, excellent chemistry, played off of each other very well, and I enjoyed it. And some of the spots that happened in this match, both men kicked out of each other's finishers. We had Randy kicking out of the Crossroads. We had Cody kicking out of the RKO. We had some conflicted Randy Orton on this show. Randy was a little bit hesitant to go for a punt kick on Cody, but he went for it anyway. But Cody was able to block it and lock in the figure 4 leg lock, and then that got reversed, and then they go into the ropes. And then as Cody came off the ropes, setting up for a beautiful disaster kick, he instead got met with an RKO in midair, and again, only good for a 2 count. So then Orton goes out to the floor, grabs a steel chair, and he is setting up to use it potentially, but then he decides against it. He gives it to the ref. Ref disposes of it, and then Randy goes over to the corner and unties the turnbuckle pad. And so he is planning on some devious actions here, and then he and Cody start going back and forth, trying to send each other into that exposed turnbuckle. And in the end, it is Randy who sets up for an RKO, but it gets thwarted and countered, and Cody shoves Randy into the exposed turnbuckle, rib first, and backs up. Cody hits the Crossroads and gets the win. So Cody Rhodes is the king of the ring, and he is guaranteed a WWE Championship match at SummerSlam. And of course, we now know the champion is John Cena. After the match, there was a look on Randy's face that he was burning a hole through that camera, the way that he just had a laser, serious, angry scowl on his face. So clearly this is setting up for some kind of fallback between him and Cody Rhodes. Probably not until after SummerSlam, but even still, it was very noticeable, and they definitely focused on it. Cody shouted out Randy in his post-match interview and talked about how he was giving respect to Randy and how he's a future Hall of Famer and all this stuff. And Randy kind of lingered out there on the floor for a little longer and just looking up at Cody. So again, seeds being planted here for what could be to come. And Cody basically said that at SummerSlam, he's going to get the ball back. He is the quarterback, so that's his plan. And it's hard to imagine that's not going to be the case unless they want this Cena run as champion to ride all the way into the end of the year, and on the very last date, that's when he drops the title. Otherwise, I don't see how this goes any other way. Now, a lot of people aren't going to like that. A lot of people, I've seen a little bit of it. I don't think it's really fully set in yet, but I'm sure as the day goes on and as the weeks go on, it's going to fall into realization for a lot of people that we are once again getting Cody Rhodes and John Cena in the main event of a PLE this year, this time at SummerSlam. Their last match was not good. We all know this. It was not a good match. And I can't imagine this one's going to be any better unless they add a stipulation to it and they let them play with weapons. That's the only way that you can possibly make a match between the two of them work at this stage in the game. And Cody beating John Cena and regaining that championship is the very likely outcome. And again, not a lot of people like Cody. People don't like him being in this spot. They don't want to see him face Cena again. They don't want to see him beat Cena. Okay, feelings valid and acknowledged, but like Cody said, he's the quarterback. You can make fun of that all you want to, but he is the guy. He is the guy that they have chosen. There's no one else in that spot. It's not Randy Orton. It's not CM Punk. Those guys are over. They are hugely, insanely over. But it's not them. It is Cody Rhodes. And after the way that they booked him to lose to John Cena at WrestleMania, to have him go on and not beat Cena or just put somebody else in that spot and then Cena retires having Cody Rhodes never beaten him, how weak does that make him look? So Cody will beat him. He will win back his championship. And based on how things went on this show, it looks like SummerSlam is the place for that to take place. So there you go. And then coming out of SummerSlam, hopefully we can revisit this stuff with Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton, whether it's immediately or if this is very early setup for possibly the WrestleMania destination. Maybe it's Cody and Randy at WrestleMania and we are just planting very early seeds for it. Either way, I'd be hyped for it. Selfishly, I would want it now. I don't necessarily want to wait too long, but if they were going to head in the direction of Randy potentially beating Cody, I don't know if you want to do that immediately. So maybe go ahead and save it. But either way, I'm very excited to see that. I'm far more intrigued by Randy and Cody in a full-fledged feud than I am for this upcoming rematch between Cody and Cena. But again, it's happening, whether you like it or not. Well, we had the King of the Ring, so we also had the Queen of the Ring finals on this show as Jade Cargill took on Asuka. Jade, she looks great. She looked great in her Storm attire. She has all the presentation you could want in a megastar. In ring-wise, not the greatest, and that was on display in this match. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't overly fantastic either. It was a pretty basic match, and as the finals of a tournament, you don't really like seeing that. And even worse, the finish was a little clunky as Asuka went for her new finisher, the Empress Impact. Jade sidestepped it, got Asuka up for the Jaded, and she goes for the cover, goes for the pin. And of course, you know the way Jade does her pins. She sits on them and kind of leans back a little bit. So she was doing that, but she accidentally fell like backwards while doing it. So it looked like the pin got broken up. One could argue even Asuka's shoulder may have popped up on the other side, but the referee finished the 3 count and that was it. So a bit of a clunky finish there, and just the abruptness of the finish felt very flat. But Jade winning, in my opinion, was very obvious. The question now is, come SummerSlam, are we looking at Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton with a Naomi cash-in during or after the match, depending on if Jade wins, or does Tiffany not even make it to SummerSlam with the championship and we get Jade and Naomi, having Naomi cashed in prior to SummerSlam, maybe even at Evolution, that all-women's show coming up in a couple of weeks? Will Naomi possibly cash in on that show? And then we get Jade versus Naomi one-on-one for the championship at SummerSlam. That's also a possibility. So we'll see. But with Jade winning here, as obvious as it was, it felt like the correct move. You could have given it to Asuka. I wouldn't have minded it. Asuka versus Io at SummerSlam would have been great. Quite possibly we might still get that match even with Asuka losing here, so I'm not overly upset about it. But yeah, with Jade winning, my question immediately goes to what is going to happen with Naomi and the Money in the Bank briefcase. So, and then outside of all that stuff, we also had a few other matches on this show. The United States Championship on the line. Jacob Fatu defending against Solo Sikoa. The match itself was fine. Nothing. Let me say this right now. Cody and Randy started the show. Excellent match. Nothing else on the show could follow that match. Like, there was some good stuff that came after, and even the main event, again, I did enjoy it, but nothing could follow that opening match. That was great, and it was easily the best thing on the entire show. And that also plays into the U.S. title match with Solo and Jacob. Again, it was a fine match, but the match is going to be remembered for everything that happened towards the end, where we had a run-in from JC Mateo. We had the return of Tanga Loa, who has been out since Survivor Series with multiple injuries. He returned on this show and got a reaction, not a big reaction, but a reaction. And of course, all of the Tanga Loa fans online who are either very committed trolls or genuine fans. I haven't decided which is which, but they were into this. But of course, the big moment was the debut, finally, after being reported to signing with WWE over a year ago. We finally got the appearance and debut on TV of Hikuleo, who is the brother of Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa. Like I said, he left New Japan over a year ago. He got signed to WWE. There was a report that they got copyrights for a name of Tala Tonga, which could come into play because as Hikuleo showed up here, Michael Cole never mentioned his name. He called him the brother of Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa. He said that he competed in Japan, but he never once mentioned his name. So I felt that was very interesting, very telling. He could be falling into the same category as Jeff Cobb with the name change. But he gave a chokeslam to Jacob onto the announce table. Table didn't break, but he threw him back in the ring. Solo gave Jacob the Samoan spike. And 1, 2, 3, Solo Sikoa is the new United States champion. And he has a new crew for himself. So obviously this is going to continue. Surprised we didn't see a Jimmy Uso appearance. He's kind of been intertwined in the story for the past couple of weeks. Surprised we didn't see him on this show, but I imagine he'll appear as backup for Jacob as he mows through these guys until he finally gets his hands back on Solo and regains the U.S. Championship. But interesting development here. We also had a street fight on this show between Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez. Between the two women's matches, this one was the better of the two. This was a very fun brawl between these two. You know, Raquel, she is very good in the ring. She just doesn't really get a chance to have a whole lot of spotlight shined on her in a singles capacity. She's the heavy. She's been the backup for Liv Morgan, and of course the two of them have been the tag team champions. Now Liv is unfortunately out with a shoulder injury, and she's going to be gone for many, many months. So this was an opportunity for her to get some spotlight on her. And it's not like her and Rhea haven't had multiple matches in the past before. They've had many matches going back to the NXT days, and they've always been really good, especially when there's a stipulation added to it. And that definitely helped this match. We had tables, we had trash cans, we had kendo sticks, we had a studded belt being used at one point. And I will say this about Raquel. She shined in this match. She delivered big time. Probably one of the best performances I've seen from her, at least on the main roster, if not ever. And of course, Rhea is Rhea, so you know she was great and over with the crowd. At one point, Roxanne Perez did come out. She tried to help Raquel. She helped her escape from a prison lock from Rhea, but she wasn't too much help because Rhea was able to dispose of her on the floor by placing a trash can over her head and basically giving her an enziguri kick with the trash can on top of her. But in the closing moments of the match, a table that was propped up on the top turnbuckle found both women on top of it, and Rhea hit an avalanche riptide on Raquel and got the 1, 2, 3. So again, very good match here. And then finally, Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross. They had a match on this show as well. It was good to see Karrion Kross actually get an appearance on a PLE. This was his first appearance on one in over a year since WrestleMania last year, and it was his first singles match on a PLE since 3 years ago in a match against Drew McIntyre in Saudi Arabia. So after months of him gaining this momentum both online and in the buildings, whenever he wrestles in the dark matches or the main event tapings or whatever, he gets big reactions. Anytime he pops up backstage, he gets big reactions. So this was the time for him to actually be in a prominent spot on a big show in a match. And he and Sami had a very adequate television match. This was not necessarily a match that needed to be on a PLE. It didn't really weigh the show down. It didn't really boost the show up. The fans were heavily into Sami Zayn. They like Sami, so that was good. And it helped, have there be noise and a reaction for the match. Kross was fine. I mean, his in-ring ability isn't, what makes him so popular. It's just his unique personality, which not everyone likes, and that's fine, but enough people do to where there's been this groundswell of support for him to get somewhat of a push. Now, he did lose here. Sami was able to get the win with a haluva kick in the end. A little bit of controversy in this match. They had a spot where Kross had him is the cross jacket or some kind of sleeper hold, and the referee picked up Sami's arm and did the lift up 3 times thing. And people were upset about this because just a few weeks ago on Raw, Gunther beat Jey Uso, had him in a sleeper, and the referee just tapped his hand and he was out. It's very inconsistent when WWE does this stuff. WWE is inconsistent with many, many things in their booking of matches, of angles, all kinds of stuff. Their rules are extremely inconsistent. So I did see some people get upset about it. I just don't, because stuff like that, at this point in my 25 years of being a wrestling fan, I just kind of give up on certain things, trying to make sense out of them. Something like that, I just don't get too hung up on it. Sami won, and that's all that mattered. Kross winning would have been good. It would have been a way for him to get great heat, beating Sami in Saudi Arabia, where he's beloved. But I don't know. It just felt like this was a win for Sami after months. This stuff has been going on for months. These guys have had interactions backstage, back and forth for several months now. And whether this is the complete blow off of it or not, Sami getting a win here, especially after failing in the King of the Ring tournament, felt like a must win for him. So no problem with that. Where Sami goes from here, I'm not sure. But they have been playing up the whole story of him wanting a world championship one day. And don't think it's happening this year, but maybe next year. They'll be back in Saudi Arabia for the Royal Rumble. That would be a hell of a spot for Sami Zayn to win. But we'll see. But that is it for this show, top to bottom. Not bad. It started strong with Cody and Randy, and the street fight came after that, which, a great brawl with those ladies. Like I said, of the 2 women's matches, that was easily the better one, and helped make the first 2 matches of the night get the show off to a great start. Kind of got into a little bit of a lull there in the middle, and then the main event, was very entertaining. I was sports entertained by that main event. But that is it for me. And of course, there are so many shows coming up in the next month and a half. We have AEW All In coming up. We have Saturday night's main event. We have Evolution. We have 2 nights of SummerSlam. There's a lot of stuff to talk about this summer, and I will try to be here for all of it. So if you guys are here, I'll be here for you. So like usual, hit that like button, subscribe, comment, and follow me on Twitter /X at DerekJ Speaks. Until next time, thank you. Check you later.